Zhiyong should be worried. USAW got it oh so wrong, and the IWF election results are in. Hello and welcome back to this week's episode of the Weightlifting News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world. We're going to switch up the order this week, go straight in with the lifts because we've got some ridiculous lifts. One of which is at the end of this lift section, is so impressive. It should be making Zhiyong quake in his boots. But we're going to kick things off with Kate Vibert, who just hit a 117 kilo snatch off blocks. Now, this is ridiculous for a few reasons. One, it is the most she's ever snatched in any variation. But two, she tends to have this kind of routine, and she's done this, I think, since 2019 when she became world champion. She hits a record off blocks, often doesn't tell anyone about it. Then she goes to a international competition, she hits that same weight or a kilo more or something like that, and then repeat. So the fact that she just hit this potentially suggests that she's capable of hitting it in competition. Now, if she does that at 76 kilos in body weight, then that will hit the world standard because no one's yet set a world record. If she does it at 71, which is the new Olympic category, yes, it is, then that would equal the world record currently held by Dang Wei from China. So the fact that Kate is even in this ballpark is ridiculous. I couldn't see it on the list for nationals, which is a shame. I'm actually heading over to the USA in 48 hours. I'll be flying, so I'm going to be at US Nationals in Vegas this weekend. So it's a shame she's not going to be there competing. She might be there helping out with Power and Grace, I don't know. But amazing lifting from her. Over now to Bulgaria, we have Angel Rusev, the 55 kilo weightlifter. He just hit a 210 kilo back squat, which is huge. It's not far off 4 times body weight, but also, it's 10 kilos under, but it's not far off. But what I wanted to sort of compare it to was his coach, Ivan Ivanov, who was the current Bulgarian coach, used to be a 52 kilo lifter for Bulgaria, had a very famous 210 kilo front squat, which is 4 times body weight front squat. Now, I'm not doing this to throw shade on Angel Rusev because 210 at 55 is crazy for the back squat. I just wanted to compare it side by side to 210 front squat by a lighter bodyweight athlete. Just ridiculous. Now, speaking of ridiculous front squats, in fact, you might have to let me know which one of these is more impressive. Is it the 210 at 52 or is it 282 at 89? Kademar Vianir. What is that? 282 at 89 is basically 3.2 times body weight. Is that right? 3.17. I was actually pretty close. Times body weight. Obviously, he might be weighing like 91. But yeah, Kademar Vianir, one of my favorite weightlifters in the world. I spent a lot of time filming and just with him at the World Championships last year. Now 89, he's the Olympic and world medalist, but 70 to 282. And what's crazy, and I spoke about him doing this when I filmed him hit a back squat. He went from 170 to 270. He loaded a red on either side, sat back down, either forgot or just didn't care, stood back up and put another red on. But on this, he does a 220 to 260 jump in the front squat, which is pretty big before hitting that 280. Okay, next, and we're almost at the Zhiyong boot shaker, we have Solfrid Kvander from Norway. Obviously, I did that video on her recently. She is now the European champion, 87 kilo lifter. She just went in competition, must have been a national competition, 111 in the snatch, and then 145 in the clean and jerk. She actually went for 148 as well. She cleaned it, missed the jerk behind. But seeing as she did 103, 141 at Worlds, and then 109, 143 at Europeans, to then add another 2 kilos on the snatch, another 2 on the clean and jerk in less than a month, her progress knows no bounds. So impressive lifting from Solfrid. Next, we have a lifter who I just want to mention for the sake of giving you someone new to follow because he has no followers, but he's a good lifter. Ahmed Gouda from Egypt. I think he's a 73. I'm pretty sure I have mentioned him before, but I looked on his Instagram. He still has no one following him. He just hit 175 kilo clean plus power jerk. I really like his technique. There are better lifters than him out there, one of whom I'm about to mention, but he's just a fun lifter to watch. That 175 clean power jerk, 125 power snatch. So Ahmed Gouda, go follow him, AHMED_GOODA. Next and finally for the lifts, this is what I want to talk about. So we have Rizki Juniansyah from Indonesia. He is the youth and junior world record holder. He's also a youth and junior world champion. and he just hit a 170 kilo hang snatch above knee. Now, the world record snatch is 169 by Zhiyong, and Zhiyong is so far ahead of anyone else. We're not really seeing many, if any, get into that 160 range. So 170 from hang is crazy. Of course, we did see Andreev Bozidar from Bulgaria a few years ago hit 170 off blocks, but could never convert that. But Rizki might be the kind of guy who can. He's an incredible young talent. I mean, he hit 200 kilos in the clean and jerk. It's 2 kilos over the world record in training almost a year ago. I think it was last June that he hit that. So he's done 200 on the floor. He even tried 199 at Junior Worlds last month, early May. And now here he is, hitting a 170 hang snatch. And something just to make him even more ridiculous is he only just turned 19 years of age. He's a sensation. 170 from above the knee is... I'd love to know what he can do below the knee. So at Weightlifting AI, one of the exercise variations that we take on board when we do Weightlifting AI is your below knee hang snatch and your above knee block snatch, because those two, in correlation with your snatch, say a lot about your strengths and balances and weaknesses and that sort of thing. So I would love to know what he could low hang snatch rather than high hang snatch, and also what he could block snatch from above the knee. Obviously, if there's a big disparity there, that's important to know. It means that we know that you're, particularly weak, probably in the posterior, the transition, all of these various things, and then that impacts how you then get your individualized program. But for someone like Rizki, I would just love to know what all of his variations are. Like, is this 170 above the knee indicative of him hitting high 160s from the floor? Is he going to actually be challenging Zhiyong for a world record? Seriously, I mean, he's got the strengths in the clean and jerk, so you just never know. Okay, next we're going to move on to the IWF Elections. But first, I do want to mention, I actually sent out an email to... We've got a massive email list now, so a lot of you will have had this already, but I was explaining about... We've got this new feature on the AI, which is add set and remove set, which is really amazing because it means that if you suddenly feel like you're doing really well and you want to work up to a PR, you can then add set and keep going up, hit that top weight, and then the AI itself knows that you've done that and then can accommodate for training volumes and intensities throughout the rest of the week or program. But similarly, say you're training, you get a call, it's work, or someone's called you from home, the lasagna is ready early. You need to get back for that lasagna. You can remove sets. And then instead of feeling like, I've left sets empty or whatever, you're just informing the AI what you were able to do and at what intensities and volumes. And then it will know and make sure that your programming is better than any coach would be able to do because it has that kind of data available. It can just very quickly alter things for the rest of your program instantly. So that add remove set function is very cool. So if you're on it, you're presumably using it. And if you're not, and you want to know that any sort of change you've made whenever life gets in the way or opportunity sort of presents itself, it's being accounted for in your overall training plan. So that's really cool that we've got that now, Weightlifting AI. I'll put a link to it down below. It is obviously, as I've said, the future of weightlifting training. So let's talk about the IWF Elections. And I want to do it in 120 seconds because I know that it's not always the most interesting thing, but it is really important that everybody knows this. And I think that the news is particularly interesting this time. So here we go, 120 seconds on the clock. Let's have it. So we've got used to a certain amount of chaos at the IWF over the last few years, and the recent elections were no exception. These elections are important because the IOC, International Olympic Committee, have been looking for proof that the IWF is committed to reform after several of these scandals that we've seen. And on that basis, what we got from these elections was a bit of a mixed bag. The new president that's been elected is Mahmoud Jaloud from Iraq. He was already a pretty controversial candidate because he didn't even have the backing of his own national federation. His election brought the biggest drama of the Congress, with angry scenes when there were claims that Jaloud had actually withdrawn prior to these votes even being cast. The highlight of this drama, in fact, was the president of the Albanian Federation grabbing the mic for a rant about democracy, which is fantastic, and you can see it happening right now. The Electoral Commission eventually decided in Jaloud's favour, and he was confirmed as president of the IWF when Youssef Al-Mana, who had raised the withdrawal issue, then himself withdrew. Then the election for General Secretary has proved no less controversial. Jose Quinones from Peru was announced as the winner, but it's then since been revealed that the proper processes was not followed, and the election is going to have to run again for that position. So it's going to be head-to-head between Quinones and then Italy's Antonio Urso. Neither Jalud nor Quinones are popular with the IOC. In fact, the IOC even refused to give Quinones accreditation to even go to the Tokyo Olympics. However, the rest of the executive board does give some hope for reform. The first vice president is going to be Ursula Papandreou from the USA, back in the IWF after being ousted as the acting president while pursuing a reform agenda. Then Pyrrhus Dimas will be a vice president. He's been pretty outspoken about the need for change. The new British weightlifting CEO, Matthew Curtin, he also gets a seat on the board, as does the German weightlifting president, Florian Sperl. Interestingly, there will be 2 current athletes on the board. Forrester Osei from Ghana gets a seat as chair of the Athletes Commission, while Japan's Hiromi Miyake was elected in her own right. So let's hope that there is sufficient drive for change on the board to get the IOC to change its mind about removing weightlifting from the 2028 Olympics in LA. That seems to be very much in the balance still. Did I do that under 120 seconds? Probably not. It could have been... I'm sure it wasn't more than 2.5 minutes, surely. Who knows? You do, I don't. Okay, it would be unfair of me to not mention the USAW thing. Now, for those of you who are listeners to the Weightlifting House podcast, which, by the way, is back with a vengeance, and it's epic. It's so good. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen. Would highly recommend it. It's just a lot of fun. We spoke about it there, but I'm going to have to speak about it here. Never before has there been such a unanimous hatred against one thing online. And it almost brings a tear to my eye how nice it is to see the athletes, the coaches, the meme pages, all in agreement over how badly USAW has decided to rearrange the national championships. So for those of you who don't know, here's a little overview of the plan. What they've done is they've decided to bring the back room up to the forefront for the spectators to see. Now, if this has been done through the lens or sort of guise of we want to make the sport more interesting, then I think that's great. We want to make it more spectator friendly. I think that's great. I just think the execution was really poor. If, however, they've done it because they've booked somewhere and the room's not big enough, that's really quite poor. I think the problem is the way that they spoke about it, the way they revealed it was very out of touch. Just really a terrible ability to read the room, the way that people were being responded to in comments or ignored. The fact that they then decided to not allow comments on the next post they did, so that it was something like, they said, we think discussion is great, but we've decided to ban comments so that our athletes can focus on competition. As though you have any right to be telling your athletes how they ought to be focusing for competition. That annoyed me so much. Because that's not the reason. That's not the reason. It is not the reason that you've decided to mute the comments. Don't act like it's because you want your athletes and coaches to focus for this upcoming competition. It's because you're too scared of the comment section and you don't want to have to deal with it. It is... I don't want to get annoyed. I hate that. It's just stupid. But anyway, the idea of bringing the back room up is silly. But I've been a proponent for a long time of making the back room part of the competition. You've got to bring what's happening behind the stage to the spectators. But I don't mean literally pick it up and put it there. I mean, get a camera in the back room, get a radio wave signal, so you've got to feed to the main video feed of what people are watching, and then after each lift, cut to it. Don't have it so that you can be sat there watching the lifter, looking at the people in the back room warming up, or the side room, we should call it, the front room. And then the people who are in the warm-up room can see what's happening on the platform and vice versa. They should at least have a curtain there. And also, what's the point about doing it for this? Because there's going to be like 9 spectators, and 3 of them are going to be me, Max, and Josh, and the other 6 are going to be people who are competing who just aren't competing yet. So don't do it for our sake. You've got to think about all of the thousands of weightlifters at home who are watching it. That's how you need to set it up. So just get a camera in the back room. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I don't know what your guys' thoughts on it are. I mean, I don't think it's going to actually affect athletes. I think a lot of athletes will use it as an excuse as to why they did poorly. But I don't actually imagine that the best weightlifters will lift worse because of that. So there's that. But also, it's just off-putting for them. And you've got to put the athletes first, always. And then media and that sort of stuff comes second. So anyway, potentially a nice idea that pushed them into making a decision. Terrible decision and terrible handling of it. Terrible. Anyway, let's move on to the people's lifts. Quick reminder while we're going through the people's lifts, because some of these athletes are on Weightlifting AI, you can join the team. You get to be on the Weightlifting House team, you get access to Weightlifting AI, you get a community of people who are all trying to get better, you get access to Max Aita, me, Josh, and Joanne, and other coaches to help with your technique. It's an incredible place to be, and code 2weektrial gets you on there with a 2-week trial for free, and you don't have to put your payment details in. So we're going to start off with weightlifting_bliat, which is the Russian swear word, or a Russian swear word, I believe. You hear Klokov yelling it a lot. So weightlifting bliat. Andrew Wang, basically. That's his page. And he hit 100 kilo snatch PR. And it's pretty epic. So huge shout out to Andrew Wang for hitting that 100 kilos. That's a real fight for that lift. Great depth. Great everything. Fantastic lift. Go follow weightlifting_bliat to see more from Andrew Wang. Next up, we have Brandon. Now, he's been on Weightlifting AI for 12 weeks. He's 66 kilos in body weight, and he just PR'd everything by 3 kilos. So 86 kilos in the snatch, which is, 20 kilos over body weight is bloody good. So 86 kilos in the snatch PR, 109 in the clean and jerk, that's +3. He almost hit 111, which would have been +5. And it's fantastic. And he's actually in the group asked for some technique help, so we'll do that properly. There's a little bit of a hop forward on the snatch, a little bit of a short stepping in the jerk, but he'll get some feedback from Max or me or someone else pretty soon, I would have thought. But shout out to Brandon, congratulations for that. Next, now heading over to 306 weightlifting. They posted a video of one athlete, and I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's Krista or Charles. It wasn't clear to me, but I like the lift. So a masters athlete, 103 kilos in the snatch. I'm not sure if it was a PR, but the reaction made it seem like it was a very good lift. And it was a very good lift. It was a fun lift. Really nice pull, really nice bar path, really nice turnover. So just great lifting from you, Krista or Charles. I don't know who you are. You're one of them. So congrats on that 103. Great lift for a Masters athlete. And then finally we have Marquez Lutz. 90 kilo muscle snatch. Looks like he's at the Nationals training hall or something like that. Looks like a training hall. Now, this is just a good lift. A 90 kilo muscle snatch is nothing to sniff at, and he didn't look like the sort of person who I would necessarily think would muscle snatch 90 kilos. So he had me shook when he didn't start going under it, and he just kept on turning over and pressing out. It's more than I've ever been able to do, obviously. So huge shout out to Marquez for that. So go follow Marquez Lutz, MarquezLutz on Instagram. That's fantastic. So brilliant work, guys. Brilliant work. I'm going to be heading out to Vegas in a couple of days. Let us know what sort of content you want while we're out there. Also, if you're still listening, I'm going to do some videos with Max where we just look at technique and training and movement of some of our favorite athletes. So that could be Zhiyong squat jerk. It could be Lu Jiaojun's snatch. It could be, let us know which athlete you're interested in, current or past, and what part of their lift, and we'll do a little bit of a review on it. I think it'll be really fun to go through some of these top athletes. Code 2weektrial at weightlifting.ai. We'd love to have you on the team. And I think that's it from me. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Weightlifting House News Show, the only weightlifting news show in the world.